When a car bomb meant for rivals killed an 11-year-old boy in Motreal, Canada, it became a turning point. The single tragedy pushed the police into action and changed law enforcement forever. The Quebec Biker War. It was 1985, and two Hells Angels chapters in Canada had turned against each other. The problem began when the Laval chapter wasn't selling the meth they were supposed to. They were using it. That mistake sparked internal bloodshed. The Angels decided to clean house, killing their own brothers. But one of the members survived and reported the incident to the police. His testimony led to the arrest of nearly half the Hells Angels in Canada. While the club was crumbling, two men were watching closely: Maurice "Mom" Boucher and Salvatore Cazzetta. Both had been part of a white supremacist biker club called the Sadistic Souls, known for its violence and loyalty. When the Angels fell, Boucher saw his opening. He asked his old friend Cazzetta to join him in rebuilding under the Hells Angels name, but Cazzetta refused. He had seen the Angels murder their own and wanted no part of it. Instead, he created his own club, the Rock Machine. That choice split Quebec's biker scene right down the middle. The motto of both clubs was the same: taking control over Canada's billion-dollar drug trade. From then on, it wasn't about friendship, it was about dominance. That moment marked the beginning of a new war. And from 1994 to 2002, Motreal became a battlefield between the Hells Angels and the Rock Machine. The Hells Angels already controlled 60% of Quebec's drug trade, but that wasn't enough. Boucher wanted it all. The war began when the Angels issued an ultimatum to everyone: join them or disappear. The Rock Machine refused, and violence followed fast. Both sides formed alliances. The Hells Angels had money, manpower, and a whole network behind them. Death Riders MC, Demon Keepers MC, Evil Ones MC, Jokers MC, Rockers MC, and the Rowdy Crew. The Rock Machine pushed back and formed alliances with the Palmers, the Bandidos, the Dark Circle, the Pelletier clan, and local dealers who refused to pay angel tax. The all-out war had begun, but for years, law enforcement couldn't touch the upper ranks. The Quebec government, the RCMP, and federal agencies all struggled to build a case strong enough to stick. The bikers were too careful, too connected, too feared that no one would dare to testify against them. So the RCMP changed tactics. Instead of chasing evidence, they looked for someone inside, and they found an informant within the Hells Angels. That's when the authorities hoped to crack the walls around Mom Boucher. That insider was Danny Kane. Danny grew up in a small Quebec town, obsessed with motorcycles. During his early years, he racked up criminal charges of every kind: assaults, thefts, and weapons, and served time in prison. By 26, he was running jobs for Walter Stadnick, the national president of the Hells Angels in Canada. Stadnick was known as a strategist, the man who transformed the Angels from a violent street club into a nationwide organization built on structure, loyalty, and financial stability. Stadnick created a feeder club called the Demon Keepers, designed to sell cheap drugs and draw police attention away from the Angels' expansion. Danny Kane was put in charge. But on April 1st, 1994, Danny was arrested. It didn't take him long to realize the truth. The Demon Keepers were never meant to succeed. They were bait, created to distract law enforcement while the real operation grew. Kane had been used, so he flipped the game. 6 months later, after his release, he walked straight into the RCMP headquarters and offered them everything: names, operations, schedules. He became an informant, secretly reporting on the Angels while pretending loyalty. He used to meet his RCMP handlers in hotel rooms 3 times a week. Then he would go back to the Hells Angels clubhouse as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Mom Boucher was taking over more Rock Machine territory, forcing smaller gangs to pick sides. Quebec's streets were sliding toward open war. Mom Boucher began taking control of bars already under the protection of the Rock Machine. If owners complied, business continued. If they didn't, the bars were destroyed. Soon after, Mom Boucher was arrested on a minor charge: illegal possession of a firearm. He served only 6 months. However, inside the prison walls, He learned that someone within the Hells Angels was feeding information to the police. When Boucher got out, he made it his mission to find the rat. Then came the call. Danny Kane was ordered to report to the clubhouse. He thought his cover was blown. When he arrived, tension filled the room. But Boucher wasn't looking for him. He had discovered another leak. A Hells Angels hitman was working with the police. The man was arrested before Boucher could reach him, but it didn't ease Boucher's paranoia. However, Boucher still believed someone else was talking to the authorities, and Danny remained a suspect in Boucher's eyes. At the same time, Walter Stadnick had invited a friend to a Hells Angels party in Halifax. Donald Magnuson, one of their own, picked a fight with guests, and it ended in blood. Boucher was furious. To send a message, he ordered Danny Kane to kill Magnuson. So he tested Danny. Boucher handed him a job to commit a murder. If he refused, he was dead. If he obeyed, his RCMP cover was gone. Now, Danny was trapped. As a police informant, he couldn't pull the trigger. If he refused, Boucher would know. So he played it smart. Danny told Boucher that Magnuson was a full patch member, and killing him should be done by another full patch, not a hangaround. Boucher accepted it. Danny walked out alive again. Once more, he had outplayed the most dangerous man in Quebec. 2 years passed. Danny was still a hangaround, not a full member, but close enough to the heart of the organization to know everything. The RCMP relied on him entirely. Beginning of the conflict. The war officially began on July 13, 1994. 3 masked gunmen walked into a custom motorcycle shop in Montreal's Rivière des Prairies neighborhood and shot Pierre Daus, a member of the Death Riders, a Hells Angels support club. He died on the floor of his own shop. The next day, the rock machine struck again, targeting another Hells Angels member. Later that same day, the Sûreté du Québec, SQ, arrested several rock machine bikers trying to plant a bomb at a Hells Angels puppet clubhouse on Montreal's South Shore. The line had been crossed. Within weeks, every Hells Angels chapter in Quebec voted to join the fight under Maurice "Mom" Boucher's command. The war was on, and Boucher was about to become one of the most powerful outlaw leaders in the world. The power shift. Boucher's real opportunity came in 1994. Salvatore Cazzetta was arrested in Florida for attempting to smuggle cocaine and sentenced to 10 years. With Cazzetta out of the picture, Boucher finally had a clear path to dominate Montreal's drug trade. Backed by the Hells Angels mother chapter in Oakland, California, Boucher made his move. At stake was a billion-dollar drug market and control of Quebec's entire underworld. The Angels were already strong in British Columbia and Halifax. If they secured Quebec, they could move into Ontario, the biggest prize in Canada. While Boucher was plotting to take complete control of Quebec, authorities were closing in too. They already had an informant inside Boucher's network, but he came with his own set of problems too. It was Aime Simard. Aime Simard, a reckless young biker. Kane met Simard online in 1996. Soon they were involved in a romantic relationship. Kane lied that he was a Hells Angel and brought him into the Rockers, a support club for the Angels. Their relationship was volatile. Simard was erratic, violent, and desperate to prove himself. He became the Angels' weapon, a trigger-happy enforcer who did whatever he was told. Kane used him as a driver, even to his secret RCMP meetings, without Simard realizing it. Things spiraled fast. Simard began killing without hesitation. In February 1997, he shot 2 people in Quebec City. Weeks later, under orders from Hells Angel David Wolf Carroll, Simard and Kane drove to Halifax to murder Robert McFarlane, a troublesome dealer. Kane deliberately missed his shots so he could tell his RCMP handlers he hadn't killed anyone. But Simard finished the job. The killing was caught on camera, grainy but enough to draw attention. Within weeks, Simard killed the primary witness to his earlier shooting in Quebec City. Then, on March 28, 1997, he gunned down Jean-Marc Casey, a Rock Machine member, outside a hockey arena in Montreal. After shooting him in the head, Simard paged his superior to confirm the hit. He later bragged that killing wasn't enough. It had to be sickening and personal. Over the following months, Simard went deeper into bloodshed. He murdered a witness, then executed rock machine associate Jean-Marc Casey in broad daylight, leaving the murder weapon at a local gym. When police found it, they traced it straight to him. By March 1997, even the RCMP knew Aime Simard was a problem. Danny warned his handlers that Simard was unpredictable and dangerous, capable of anything. Simard was arrested on April 11, 1997, and turned informant himself. For the next 5 years, Mom Boucher would push harder than ever, doing what no other criminal in Canadian history had managed, turning Quebec's entire underworld into a single empire under the Hells Angels. Murder of prison guards. By 1997, the violence had moved beyond the streets. It reached the prisons. 2 correctional officers were murdered in cold blood, and a third barely survived. Diane Levine was shot on her way home from a shift at Montreal's Bordeaux jail. Weeks later, Pierre Rondeau and Robert Corriveau were ambushed while driving a prison transport van. Rondeau died behind the wheel. Corriveau lived. Investigators soon learned the truth. The killings weren't random. They were ordered by Maurice "Mom" Boucher himself. The shooter wanted to prove his loyalty and earn a spot in the Nomads, the Hells Angels' elite Quebec unit, a group so feared that murder was the price of entry. Killing of an innocent 11-year-old. On August 9, 1999, the violence hit a point of no return. A bomb planted by the Hells Angels, meant for rivals, killed 11-year-old Daniel Desrochers. That single blast turned public opinion. Pressure on the police exploded overnight. Bikers had crossed the line, and the public demanded action. The government demanded results, and public pressure on the police was reaching its peak. People wanted action. In response, the RCMP launched a full-scale operation to bring down Mom Boucher and the Hells Angels leadership. Investigators gathered intelligence, tracked movements, and built cases from the inside, using Danny Kane as their key informant. But Boucher refused to back down, even under surveillance. Even as the walls closed in, he continued his war as if he were untouchable. By 1999, after years of gunfire, bombings, and revenge hits, the Hells Angels had crushed most of the rock machine and their allies. The Angels were bigger, richer, and better organized. But the rock machine wasn't finished yet. In 1999, they made a move that changed everything. They joined forces with the Bandidos, an international biker club with chapters around the world. The Hells Angels saw this as a direct threat. If the Bandidos gained ground in Canada, they'd lose control of the country's most valuable prize, the Ontario drug market. By December 2000, the Angels struck first. Nearly 200 Ontario bikers switched sides, patching over to the Hells Angels. That single move gave Boucher's organization access to Ontario's billion-dollar trade, making the Angels unstoppable across Canada. Then came the crackdown. In March 2001, police launched Operation Springtime, one of the biggest crackdowns in Canadian history. Nearly 2,000 officers carried out coordinated raids across 77 municipalities in Quebec, with support from forces in Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia. Even police in Jamaica, Mexico, and Interpol helped make arrests abroad. The operation was massive. 288 searches, 20 buildings worth $12 million, and over $12.5 million in cash and assets seized. Officers recovered 70 firearms, including a Uzi, 2 Cobra guns, and a rocket launcher. They also seized 28 vehicles, 13 motorcycles, 3 stolen cars, 1 stick of dynamite, 120 kilograms of hash, and 10 kilograms of cocaine. By the end, hundreds of bikers were behind bars, including Maurice "Mom" Boucher and 41 of his top men. The Bandidos tried to fill it, but it didn't last long. In June 2002, police hit them with Operation Amigo, wiping out their leadership in a single sweep. By 2003, the rock machine had merged with the Bandidos. But even that alliance couldn't stand. They ceded Quebec to the Hells Angels and disappeared from the streets. After almost a decade of bloodshed, bombings, and fear, the Quebec Biker War was over. Aftermath. In May 2002, Maurice "Mom" Boucher was finally convicted. The man who once ruled Quebec's underworld was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder for ordering the killings of 3 prison guards. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. Inside Archambault prison, in Stéon-des-Plaines, Boucher still tried to control the outside world. In November 2015, he was caught plotting the murder of Reynald Desjardins, an associate of Montreal's Rizzuto crime family. The arrest was part of a massive Sûreté du Québec raid targeting 47 organized crime figures across the city. By the time the Quebec War ended, 162 people were dead, including civilians. 84 bombings, 130 arson incidents happened. Meanwhile, Salvatore Cazzetta's story came full circle. After his release from prison in 2005, he joined the very organization he once opposed, becoming a full-patch Hells Angel. From 2011 to 2015, he allegedly led the Quebec chapter. By 2018, Cazzetta had turned his fight to the courts, suing the Attorney General of Quebec for $2 million. He was also battling Revenue Canada over unpaid taxes from his early years in the biker world. On July 10, 2022, at the age of 69, Mom Boucher died of throat cancer behind bars, the end of the man who once brought a province to its knees. Quebec War changed law enforcement forever. In the wake of the Quebec Biker War, the Canadian government moved to strike back. The law enforcement needed stronger tools to fight back. New anti-gang laws were introduced to dismantle organized crime, led by Bill C-95 in 1997 and Bill C-24 in 2002. Bill C-95 defined criminal organization, made participation a serious offense, tightened bail, and allowed police to seize gang assets. Bill C-24 expanded those powers, added new offenses for ordering crimes, protected undercover officers, and even removed $1,000 bills to disrupt illegal cash flow. These changes reshaped Canadian law enforcement. For the first time, police had the legal framework, resources, and authority to directly target the structure of organized crime. And if you think this was brutal, click on the next video to see the ones who took that code to its darkest edge.